Valley Center City Council meeting for June 21st, 2022 is now in session. Roll call.
Mayor Cicerello?
Here.
Councilmember Stamp?
Here.
Councilmember Evans?
Here.
Councilmember Bass?
Here.
Councilmember Anderson? Councilmember Gregory?
Here.
Councilmember Verstetta?
Here.
Councilmember Wilson?
Here.
Councilmember Culver?
Here.
Please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. God, thanks so much for these men and women here who help lead this town. We're so grateful for the time they sacrifice, what they stand for, and we're grateful for how you lead us each and every day. Bless the decisions that are made here tonight, and thank you so much for all you do for us, God. It's in your name that we pray today. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. There is a minor typographical error in the agenda that I'd like to correct. When this was created, Director Kevin Lannerman was only the interim director when this was printed. So we are going to modify the agenda to remove the word interim, since he is now officially, congratulations, the director. So
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
second, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We do not have an agenda to go or minutes to go over from the last meeting. Since our beloved city clerk was on vacation, we know our beloved city administrator couldn't do it.
Yeah, you're right. Better get the email out to
Yeah.
us.
I couldn't. I was thinking that one up ever since I read that line in the agenda. So, all right. So we're going to just move right along to presentations and proclamations. We do have a presentation from our Sedgwick County EMS Director, Kevin Lannerman, and Assistant County Manager, Rusty Leeds.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm sure you're aware or remember earlier this year, we had some citizen concerns with response from EMS, which prompted a conversation between Director Lannerman and myself. And he offered to come up with the assistance, with the presence also of Assistant County Manager Rusty Leeds, and give council an update on where they're at with EMS and give an opportunity for some question and answers. So I will turn it over to Kevin. I should say too, the citizens that we had talked to in the past had concerns are also in the audience tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I appreciate the opportunity for Sedgwick County EMS to come up and speak with you all, and give you an update on what's going on in Sedgwick County EMS. I'm sure you're all aware that we currently deploy an advanced life support ambulance daily from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Here at Valley Center, housed in the public safety building, which I understand is
Possible. It's in a thought pattern right now.
Okay. So I'm sure you're all aware that we've had staffing issues been pretty prevalent in EMS the last few years, not only with Sedgwick County, but that has kind of been a trend around the United States here in the last few years. Lack of paramedics in paramedic school, of course, COVID and all that did not do us any favors. So there is a shortage throughout the country that is getting better. But that shortage has accounted for incidents where we have to unfortunately move resources to areas to maintain the adequate number of resources in areas where the probability of calls is going to be the greatest. So just an update on numbers, and I will kind of lead y'all know if any of you are aware of seeing it. We do have a pretty nice dashboard on sedgwickcounty.gov EMS. You can get all the response time information, call volume. It's narrowed down to cities, the county in general. Like I said, call volume, response time, types of calls, things like that. So that anytime you're curious, you can go on there and see how we're doing. But like I said, our leadership plans to continue providing ALS care to the city of Valley Center. As staffing increases and our leadership team is committed to improve our staffing. The amount of time that the unit is pulled away from Valley Center hopefully will be decreased as, like I said, as we get more units on the street. So with that, any questions or anything you may have?
Well, I'll start out. I have a couple items. First of all, are you sure you want to do? No. We are all aware of what's happened. I mean, everybody should understand what's been going on with the department over the last 6-8 months or so. And I know personally it's not your fault. Okay. Obviously. The biggest concern I think we had, and we addressed it once before, was the way the system decides on whether our squad needs to respond. Okay. That was the one thing. And I believe it's probably been brought up to you that, and I don't know if what I'm asking for is anything miraculous, but I think when we know that our ambulance is out covering some other space, that maybe our guys get dispatched regardless of what the call is, at least there's somebody there. Obviously, there's times that probably won't happen because they may be elsewhere, but at least to get somebody there, regardless of what the system says is the problem, and we've all been through, I'm sure we've all been through some emergency situations in our lives where 30 seconds in reality seems like 3 hours. Okay. I know I have. And once you've gotten through through whatever the problem is, and you go back and look at what reality was, you're shocked. It was only that long type thing, or, it was a minute, but that's not the way a human reacts. That's not our nature. So, that would be until this gets smoother, which I know you're all working on. I've discussed this with Commissioner Cruz a lot too. And I think you finally got the entire commissioners on board to fix this mess. So that's a huge plus for you. So yeah, the only thing I would ask is that, if it's in Valley and the ambulance is going to take, that long. Now I've had a couple calls at my house where I've had the one at 53rd Street respond only because ours was out. And I've also had the one at K96 in Hillside respond. But that was back when it was still fairly decent. That was back before all this issues happened. And I was honestly surprised when I found out that the one that responded was from K96 in Hillside, because it was like 4 minutes, but I get it. With the shortages, you've got to start spreading thinner. So I guess my ask would be, let's see if we can't respond our squads if we know that it's going to take. However, I mean, that's something I guess you guys can work out of it, some kind of a time window. But I think that would be the best results for us in a solution until you can get things back to where they were prior everything. So
I don't think that's a major ask. And as a matter of fact, that happens throughout the system already. As you're alluding to, calls go into the 911 dispatch center based on the information that's given to the dispatcher and put into the system. It gives a priority.
Mm-hmm.
That determines who goes, if they go emergency traffic or regular traffic. I know we spoke about one of the calls that was brought up, was put in, and it was dispatched out as a priority 5, which means EMS only goes regular traffic. So I know even when we get to low status and responses are going to be a long time, our supervisors, our shift commanders try to realize that, and they oftentimes do start a fire response, even though it's not warranted by the priority if the response is going to be so long. So I think that's something that can be easily done if that response time is going to be lengthened because of where they're responding from. So.
And like I said, what goes through our minds is just as a human, when there's a situation going on, it's, I get it. I get
I've been
that
on the
too.
other side, and
I know, I have
I
too.
know
and-
exactly what you're talking about. It seems
so-
like forever before
All right.
somebody's there.
Mr. Colbert, Councilmember Colbert.
Okay. Good evening. First of all, congratulations on your selection for the directors. I'm curious, do you know offhand what your time difference between the fastest and slowest is for responding to Valley Center?
The Valley Center, I don't know off the top of my head. I know it's a matter of, if you go on the dashboard, which I just looked today, I think our average response time on emergency calls like 12 minutes, and for non-emergency calls it's 13, I think, if you look at the dashboard. So there's not a huge and a difference between, and that's just an average response time. So, there's going to be times that are going to be, of course, longer and shorter both ways, but I don't have that exact information.
There you go.
Good. I was glad you were pulling that out. So if you go to, down to Valley Center, if you just want to look at 2021 data, that'll give you a whole, it's a month behind. So this is through May. When June's done, then June data will be put in here. If you actually go to the operations tab down there, response times.
There you go.
So that's 2022. 2021, I believe there was roughly, I think, about 489 responses, 478 in. And there's the whole. All calls is about 13 minutes. The lights and sirens calls is about 12 minutes.
The other question I have for you is, I understand that you guys are in the process of training 14 new ones.
Right now, we have 14 paramedic openings. We have started a EMT to paramedic program. It was approved last year by the commission, and we currently have 9 EMT program that will. Some of them graduate in December, depending on which program they're in, and the other ones will graduate, I believe, in March of next year, March or April. We also have 6 or 7 that starting paramedic class got accepted in August that are hopefully going to use that same program. So there's about 15 right there that within a year and a half, 2 years will be with that program. They do sign a contract with Sedgwick County for a 3 year to stay with the organism. Like I said, I wish there was an immediate way we could fix the staffing problem, but unfortunately, having to get them through paramedic class, we are actively recruiting elsewhere. I know the big emphasis with the county and the commission is compensation, and that will greatly improve the number of quality paramedics that we can get and that we can retain. So I wish I had a crystal ball to see what it looked like in a couple of years, but I really believe on the path we're going and the support we have that close to fully staffed within a couple of years. So and like I've told the assistant county manager and the commission, when we get fully staffed to where our staffing tables are now, I'm going to be coming asking for more staff, because that doesn't quite get us to where we need to be to bond adequately. So,
No, thank you.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
So I think you answered maybe one of my questions. So our history with having a truck in town, That was, I think, 3 years ago. This was probably before you were even part of helping with the county. But we were having issues with the truck leaving. That was before our staffing issue. So our history with EMS has been okay. Sometimes it's not as good as we'd like it to be. So there's a little bit of background. So how many stations do you currently house as far as 24-hour staff?
Or 24-hour, we have 13 units that are 24-hour ambulances. And then there are 6 other ambulances that are second shift or peak shift ambulances that come on for 12 hours, like the unit here, either from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. or from noon to midnight during those peak times.
You said 6?
Pardon me?
You said 6?
6 during
Okay.
that time. So 19 total during peak times. That's correct.
Okay. And then you kind of answered this last one. So when your staffing issue is alleviated, which I want to emphasize something that you've already said, to train a paramedic, they have to be an EMT basic first. And that's a 1 semester of college that you have to get good grades in. I went through that. And then after that, it's an 18-month to a 24-month program. So it's not like you can go outside and hire somebody right off the bat. So I get that, and it's good. I appreciate that you're recruiting. You've got some people that you identified to fill those trucks. So, but once your staffing issues alleviated in 18 months to 2 years, which hopefully it's faster and you can get recruiting done, are you going to be adding stations since our county is expanding?
That's what like I mentioned, I've already brought up to county management and to the county commission that when we get fully staffed, that we're going to need to add resources, add more trucks on after we get to our current
Okay.
staffing level flush. So
Good to know, because we're expanding the north side, not just west and
it's
east.
expanding all over, and our current staffing model is the same as it was in 2017. That's why I'm saying once we get full there, we're obviously going to need to try to add more ambulances. 'Cause
Right.
I don't see the call volume decreasing. We have it normally about 3 to 4% every year. 2020 was kind of an anomaly, but then 2021 kind of picked it back up. So since 2017, we've had about a 16.8% increase. So,
Okay. Thank
so
you.
like I said, I don't see that stopping or changing as we continue to grow. But on that pace, we're definitely going to need to add ambulance.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gregory.
Out of curiosity, how much does it cost to train a paramedic?
Well, like he said, it's college courses. So the EMT course is, like you said, about a semester course at the college.
8 credit hour class.
There's various colleges around that have an EMT program, and then the paramedic program is actually an associate's degree program now. So condensed down to about 14, 16 months now, but it is a 2-year associate's degree that is, it's a lot compacted into that amount of time. So it's roughly about $9,000-$10,000 for the class.
And the county pays that, or does the employee pay that?
Right now, the ones that are in our program, our EMT to paramedic program, these are employees that already work for us as EMTs. Traditionally, before this program, we have full-time EMTs work for us. And because of the nature of the paramedic class, which is, especially when you get into the portion where you're in field internship or hospital clinicals, you're basically doing a full-time hours at that point. These individuals would have to quit or go down to part-time because they couldn't work the full-time hours. So with this program, they are able to stay full-time, go to class, whatever hours they're not meeting, they pick up, like if they only have 2 days of class that week, they'll pick up a shift on a truck to get to their required full-time hours. They stay full-time, we pay them, and then they get paramedic class paid for. in return, we get a 3-year commitment from them after they graduate, that they'll stay with Sedgwick County EMS. So,
How much does an ambulance cost?
the ambulance itself, you probably don't want to know that right now.
We just bought a fire truck,
Yeah,
so.
well, then you're aware, that especially with the cost going up. I know the last ones that we just did were close to $300,000. And unfortunately, I don't think Rusty knows this yet, but we got information today from the ambulance manufacturer that as of, I believe, July 1st, they're going up another 7%, which is another like $21,000. So not cheap. So, and that's just for the ambulance itself with the cot and things like that. That doesn't include the monitor, all the supplies and everything like that, the personnel that go in them.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I don't have a question. I just got a statement. I've known Kevin for 16 years.
Well, we're sorry.
And longer than that, hasn't it?
Well, 18.
Okay, yeah.
I think the county got on the right direction hiring him. He's a good guy.
Yep.
We all kind of know from the news and the papers what was going on there with the previous person. And I think Kevin's the right guy to guide it the right way and right the ship.
Yep. I agree too. And like I said earlier, you've got the full support of the commission, which is an absolute must.
Yes.
They're giving you the reins as opposed to pulling back on them. So that's definitely huge. And it's Councilmember Christian.
I just thank you for your time and good luck.
Thank you very much. Like I said, I appreciate you having us up here, giving us the opportunity to speak with you. If there's other issues, Thank you.
Mr. Lee, did you have anything you want to add? You don't have to.
I don't have anything to add to the conversation. I would just, I guess the only thing I would say is that we are committed to restaffing. We're implementing a step plan so that the medics, those employees will know that they have consistency in their pay. Historically, that's not necessarily been the case. Now they'll have a plan laid out so they know what they're going to make annually. Hopefully the intent is to retain those people that we have first and foremost. They're able to plan their future and know what they're going to be making over the next 15 years as long as they perform well. And then hopefully that also becomes attractive for new hires as they are available. So we're committed to that. And we also understand that as the call volume increases and the county continues hopefully to grow in a positive way, that we'll need to look at staffing increases. Back in 2020, we had talked about the fact that to maintain a level of service with the call volume as it is and population as it is, that we would be looking at adding positions. And we made the commission aware of that. We'd be looking at adding positions in the future, but we first had to get staffed with the positions we had open. So we're committed to doing that. Communities, I just live 3 miles from here. But then you go out west, you got communities out there that also have much longer response times. So commissioners want to be sure that we serve those communities. It's just a matter of balancing the revenues that we receive from transports, which really that's the only source of revenue for EMS, and then balancing that with tax supplement. So it's kind of a balancing act, but we're working in a positive way to make those things happen. We're always happy to come back. If you have questions, please call Kevin, please call me. We'll be happy to come back and address anytime you have concerns or questions.
Just one more quick question. It just dawned on me. When you talk about trying to acquire from other areas, people, staffing, is paramedic training similar across counties, across state lines, or do you know? You may not even know the answer to this, but
It's based, each state has different criteria for their state certification. You're certified through the state. So each state there's a national paramedic that a little different than the way Kansas does it. But each state has different hour requirements, different class. I know Kansas, fortunately, is one of the states that has some of the most stringent hour requirements for paramedics. You could go to some different states and get get your paramedic and not spend nearly as many hours as you would in the class or on ambulances as you do in Kansas. That's why Kansas requires, a lot of states just accept the national certification. In Kansas, you have to be a Kansas certified because it is.
You answered the question. I have one more for you. Councilmember Wilson.
Director, does this website, this dashboard, does it break this down as to when the call volume is the heaviest based on hour of the day?
I believe you can look into it. So it breaks down pretty.
Yeah, I think when we had the Sedgwick County Association Cities meeting, we got the demo on this, and I think you
They
can
came up
break
and
it
did a
down.
Very good demonstration of this.
Yeah, you can.
There's call by hour of the day, so you can kind of see what we do in that those hours that we staff, hours, us, Valley Center, but Pacific, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock on to up 7 o'clock is pretty.
And that's when we're not staffed.
No, the
Here.
ambulance is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's historically, if you look at our call volume in general, that's when it is the greatest. That's why we have more trucks on during that time, that peak time.
So back to the graph that we were first on, make sure I'm seeing this right, but the nearly 400 of the calls were of a 10-minute or longer response time. Was that what I was seeing?
That's the average,
Of 10 minutes or longer is nearly 400 calls.
probably be about correct to get that average of 12 minutes. So,
I'm just thinking about the response time within our area for our city. I'm a former paramedic firefighter. It seems like quite a long time when we have a unit sitting in the center of town, of a town that's not that big. But that's why I was asking when the volume was
Time when the
highest.
call volume gets greater throughout the county and the status of units gets low, that unit gets pulled in to where the demand is the greatest.
Does this dashboard show when our unit's not around in the response time? Can it tell me that, due to that,
No.
it doesn't?
No,
Okay.
it wouldn't. Right. Where the response is coming from.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Last call. Anybody else? Thank you both very much for coming. I appreciate it very much. All right. Moving along. At this time, we are at the public forum. This is the time we allow anybody that's in the audience that'd like to speak to an item that's not on the agenda. Oh.
My name's Chris Edwards. I live at 301 Valley Park Drive. You guys remember me from January. So kind of like piggybacking on your comment, we have 20 volunteer firefighters. 13 of them are EMT certified. Paramedic, but it's at least EMT certified. So is there a way that we can, like we talked about, getting those calls out to the fire department so that instead of 17 minutes or even 10 minutes, it's 4 minutes from my house to the fire department if you're going the speed limit. And so, within 5 blocks, there's 5 volunteer firefighters that are EMT certified. So they could have made it in an earlier time than 17 minutes or even 10 minutes. So is there something we can do to get those calls up to the fire department, even when they're
That's exactly, you sitting there is what made my comments come out. Because
I know,
I was
I
going to
look
do
good.
it
I
whether
look
you
good
were
back
here or
there.
not, but when I saw you and I'm like, yeah, I got to make sure I say that. But
And
yes, that's what they're, and I'll let Chief, you want to.
That's what I think Kevin was talking about, and him and I did have that conversation. So those are the priority 5 is what he referred to it as when it comes out on the call. It generally shows Omega, which means EMS response only. And that's where they have, and he didn't really touch on it, but what he explained to me when he talked about the supervisors So they have a map they watch when they're on shift, the supervisors, and that map almost looks like a thunderstorm map at times. So when areas start lighting up yellow and then red, that's where all the calls are coming, and that's when they start pulling the units. And that's when the supervisors are supposed to be watching. And what he was saying, we talked about that on the mega calls. They're not going to dispatch on every single mega call, but when their supervisors see that this ambulance is coming from West Wichita or East Wichita, that's when they're supposed to then, say, hey, you need to start Valley Center Fire. It's going to be a longer response. And that's what him and I had talked about on that, and making sure. And our fire department has the ability to go in and look at those calls. And now, since January, in your call, Chris, they've been doing that. Anytime they hear a call come out, they hear all the calls. They don't always hear the detail, but they can go out to the trucks and look at their computers. They have a computer in the office, and they can pull up the details on that call and see if that's something like your case back in January that they need to indeed respond. They can go ahead and respond then, even if they're not dispatched by that supervisor. But on EMS's side, they're supposed to be doing that as well, and they have done that. They did it some prior, and they've done it since.
I got a 3-week-old at home, so just plan on 18 months from now, we're going to have this conversation. So, thank you very much. guys.
Did you guys have questions for Chief?
For Chief.
Okay, I got Councilmember Kirkstetter and Councilmember Wilson. I don't know which one you just lit up first, but
It doesn't matter. This also actually might be for Mr. Clark. For our full-time firefighters that are there during the day, or how many of them are EMTs?
All of them.
All of them? Do
Yes.
we have an incentive for them to get their eyes or whatever the next level is?
We've had a program in the past.
Not necessarily paramedic, but I know there's an intermediate
EMT.
level.
We've had a program in the past. I don't know the last time anybody had actually taken advantage of that.
Do they know it exists?
That's another question.
Okay.
I know at least one has. We've talked about it in the past. I think, and you may have to correct me, Barry, if I'm wrong, but they have to pay in advance, maintain a certain grade point average, and then get reimbursed for at least part of the expenses.
Okay, well, that's
Which
better
is the
than-
same. That's been the same for others, in getting their degree. I took advantage of that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, I'm glad to hear that we have something that if they want to pursue that, then they can. So,
Councilmember Wilson.
Chief, I'm needing a little bit of a history lesson. Has this city ever done dual response for both medical or fire on all medical calls? Has there ever been a history of that?
I'm not sure I understand. Has fire responded on all medical calls?
All medical calls.
Not typically. So in the past, and when I first started, fire didn't respond to any medical calls. Police were the first responders on medical calls until EMS arrived. And then once they started doing it, not all calls, they kind of split them up because it's still a fairly high call volume. And so they try to save resources. So there are some calls where it's just fire that goes and not EMS, just to save on the EMS resource side. And so that's how they've split them up historically.
Just asking. I mean, I come from the Andover area where, back in the 80s and 90s, it was dual response. Now, again, we're talking about 3 EMS units that covered the whole county of Butler County at that time.
In the 90s for us, it was police. And I'm glad
Was it?
that our fire responds now.
Okay.
I'm
'Cause
not an
I hit a
EMT.
lot of medical calls, a lot. So, all right. Thanks, Chief.
All righty. We'll move on to appointments. I have a appointment for Jamie Anderson to be our representative on the Valley Center Rec Commission, whose term will expire in 2026. She's replacing, this is a new one. She was not our last, was she? Why am I thinking it wasn't her? But okay.
this is a reappointment?
This is a reappointment. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, okay. That might be what happened. Huh? Okay. Motion?
I move to reappoint Jamie Anderson to the Valley Center Rec Commission for a 4-year term expiring on June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving right along, we into new business. Item A, Valley Center 2023 budget, first draft.
Mr. Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight is our first draft of our budget, so
Super excited.
thank you. Appreciate it.
No, you're super excited.
Wants to know where the
I thought you said you were super
I
excited.
thought he said it too. I was like, he just wants to know where the money's coming from. That's all.
Barry, I just got sprayed by sarcasm over here with that comment.
It's very
There
fake.
was no feelings behind it.
It's okay. It's good times. First of all, apologies for missing last meeting. Had a great opportunity to attend the GFOA National Conference for the first time. It was a great experience, very humbling. Had a conversation with one individual from, I think it was Fresno or Giant County, California, where he asked how many people I had in my department. And I said, well, we have about 50 full-time employees. And he says, oh, just in the finance department? I said, no, the finance department's about 2. We have 50 total for the city. And he looked at me funny. He said, oh, we got 7,512 full-time employees. And I was like, well, that's more than our population. So,
That'd be a little hard to send to the citizens.
yeah, it was humbling realizing our entire budget is a rounding error on their overall budget. So similar issues across the board, just on a much different scale. But, okay, so let's run through this. So first, we'll start out about our demographics. Just some small changes here. The state of Kansas Department of Commerce puts these data sheets up on their website. It's a good snapshot of information. Breaks it down by age, income, housing units, raised population, and then median household income and average household income, and what they expect that to be 4 years from now. So lots of good information. It's good to know about the area you're talking about when it comes to budgets and demographics you're dealing with. So for evaluation, especially for our newest Councilmember Bass, kind of laid everything out here. So every year we get a valuation of the city. So what is that valuation? Basically, it's the total assessed value of all the real and tangible property within the city. All the houses, all the cars, all the boats, all the watercraft, everything like that, including land. So each of these are assessed at different rates. These are all on the appraisers' websites, but our main ones are residential, which are assessed at 11.5%, and commercial, which are assessed at 25%. So you basically get told what your house or property is worth, and then it's applied by this percentage to get your assessed value, and that's what your property taxes are based off of. So our total valuation for fiscal year 23 was $63,677,000, which was an increase of about 7.25%. So using that information, this is what we get every year from the county clerk. Basically states what our evaluation was the year prior, and breaks it out into personal property and state assessed property. The state assessed line includes all utilities, parts of the railroad frontage, but mainly the utilities, electric, gas, etc. And also break it down from of that new increase, 847,000 that was due to new construction, and 58,000 that was due to changed use. Say something changed from residential to commercial, that value is going to increase because it's assessed at a higher percentage. So that's what those numbers are. So also included in this is the November abstract. This is the final numbers from our previous year. As we know, we deal with three years when we're doing budget. This is from the actual 21 numbers that was used for our 22 budget. And our 22 valuation is being used for our 23 budget. So these are those actual numbers. And also included here is our evaluation of our TIF district. I think it went up $44. So even dirt got more expensive as of right now. So using those numbers, we determine our total increase here was 7.25%, and then we figure out that revenue neutral rate. That's that new budgeting mechanism the state put into place last year. So what that is basically we take our actual billed property tax dollars from last year, which is that $3.2 million number, and we divide that by our new assessed value. So last year we levied 54.848 mills. If we were to take last year's property taxes divided by this year's valuation, that drops that to 51.141. So essentially, for fiscal year 23, if we levy 51.14 mills, we'll receive the same tax revenue as we did last year or this year. So we run that through and we apply what we levied last year at the 54.848. That gives us a total increase of 236,127 property tax dollars for fiscal year 23. This is our comparison from this year to next year. Slight differences in there. Not a whole lot of adjusting we needed to do. The only reason for the small adjustments were for our housing incentive program. When we send those rebate checks back to the homeowners, we split that out between each fund. I just took those little bits of mills, put them on the general, so I can just write a check from one place and not having to include a bunch of extra accounting with it. Just made life a lot easier. So that's what the small, tiny adjustments are. Like in emergency equipment, it dropped 0.003. That was their portion of the, or 0.023, sorry. I know that was a lot of information. Any questions on those before we jump into the enterprise funds? Okay. So tonight we're going to run through the enterprise funds, which is water, sewer, storm, and solid waste. And then we'll hit the taxing funds, get some feedback. And then our next meeting, we'll bring back the comprehensive discussion, incorporating all of our decisions made tonight. So enterprise funds, we basically receive all of our revenue from these from user charges and fees. And we'll start with water. I don't think there was any major increases or major asks of fiscal year 23 in the water department. We're still maintaining that water subsidy to sewer, maintaining our reserve transfer, that $30,000 for the well maintenance program, and then $20,000 for extra water meters. We want to get ahead on those water meter orders. Those lead times right now are 4 to 12 weeks on water meters, so we want to stock up on those before all the development starts to happen. And not much difference on the expenditure side. We just have a scheduled drop of $700 fund balance. Nothing really there. But a update on here, disconnection charges have dropped 50% since we started doing those calls for people with past dues and shut-off notices. So we've dropped our penalty revenue by $12,000 or 50% in that line. So that amount of money staying in the pockets of our residents just because we're taking that extra step and getting people a call, saying heads up, hey, bills due. So I forgot, things like that. So. For the sewer fund, we're maintaining our manhole rehabilitations with the Zebron coating. We're still paying that debt service through 2029 for the revolving loan fund. Making our payments for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Hitting those transfers for a potential Abilene lift station and that $23,000 for the UV bulb maintenance program that Director Eggleston talked about. Just small increase in expenditures with the budgeted $28,000 decrease in fund balance. And side note here was we've decreased our sledge hauling costs by about $30,000 year over year since we started hauling it ourselves and finishing those upgrades. So that $170,000 we spent on the new semi truck and the trailer, we will return that investment by fiscal year 25. So we'll be even at that point. So good decision to move that way.
Give a question on wastewater.
It's actually, yeah, clarification on your slides here. The number in parentheses, it says such and such to fund balance. What does it mean by the parentheses?
Sorry, when it's in parentheses, that means a decrease.
Decrease, okay.
Sorry, I excel on accounting and it puts the
It's
parentheses on
fine.
there.
I just want to make sure I'm on the same page.
Right. But for stormwater, moving right along, staying pretty straightforward. We're still doing those system improvements, reallocations of CIP to help pay for all of our road projects going on, all the stormwater portions of those projects. I recommend still continuing that transfer. And then we have a small decrease in fund balance this year. And that's just because last year we decided to drop that fee from $8.12 down to $8 and keep that flat through fiscal year 24. So we're starting that trend of trying to level out the utility bills before we eventually start dropping them when we get to the water treatment plant. That's the goal right now. Solid waste began a partnership with Waste Connections at 21. Admin fees remain flat. This year, I am requesting the $15,000 to be incorporated for a new bill folding / stuffing machine. Ours is getting pretty old. It takes quite a while to stuff all the utility bills every month, and starting and stopping, and it's getting pretty old. So that fund we're scheduled to increase by $1,500 at the end of the year. Next year. But to wrap it up, the requests, most of them are the same as last year, except for the UV bulb maintenance program and the $15,000 for the new folding stuffing machine. Any questions on the enterprise side of things?
Councilmember Wilson.
Well, I'm probably going to step on some toes here, but is there an incentive to get people to pay electronically versus sending out paper bills?
Not yet.
Okay.
I hope to get there. Maybe something we bring to you. We're getting all that worked out with the online system and switching that over to e-billing and figuring out the system we need to put in place to get people to sign up. It's very hard when we send out information to get a whole lot of response back in regards to those things. We started that when we switched to the phone calling system, asking people to update their phone information. Got a decent response, but still need to work on that to get that information out there.
Thank you, Barry.
Mm-hmm. Questions here? No? All right. So move on to the taxing and special revenue funds. These are all of the funds that are reliant on the ad valorem or property taxes, sales taxes, alcohol, and state gas tax distribution funds. We'll start here. These are our 5 main taxing funds that rely on the property taxes: general, employee benefit, bond and interest, library, emergency equipment. These are the scheduled increases to those revenues based upon our new valuation. So for the library, every year these are way over budgeted, just so everything we receive, we can pass straight through to the library. We don't want to receive extra dollars because the valuation fluctuates, and then we're capped at our limit and they don't receive that revenue each year. So we over budgeted. That's why it always says we're going to drop fund balance several $1,000s. Each year, though, we end up only sending what we get, so we're always even when we end up at the end of the year. Bond and interest fund, this year we're scheduled to add $46,000 to fund balance. That's due to the refunding we did a couple years back, and one of those issuances within that refunding falling off last year, so we no longer need to pay that. When I first started in 19, going through the fiscal year 20 budget, we had that mill transfer going on. And we ended up having to transfer some of those mills back to general that were going to be reallocated to bond and interest. And the goal at that point was to get that fund back up to 18.5. Well, in fiscal year 21, because of that valuation increase, the goal dropped to 16.5. And now for fiscal year 23, because of that increase, we don't need to change any more mills back to bond and interest. We're good right where we're at. Then we can stay right there, and that will cover our debt service payments throughout maturity of what we currently have. And that's what this is right here. It's just our mill levy analysis for that fund. As you see on the far right side, that 14.471 mills number, that's what we levied last year. So that's going to stay stagnant throughout maturity of all of our bonds. And it shows us actually increasing fund balance throughout maturity there. So what that tells us is there, as we move forward and start issuing debt every 2 years, that number will basically stay stagnant. We'll be at a stagnant debt level and just maintain that moving forward. And here's just another snapshot of all of our issuances that are currently outstanding and how much we owe each year for that fund. So we've been working a lot on debt, and our goal here is to reduce the amount of long-term debt we issue over time, because we don't want to raise taxes. We want to get as much as we can with what we have. So how we're doing that is through grants. We're utilizing our sales tax and the gas tax dollars differently by paying more cash up front rather than just hanging on to it and then issuing a bunch of debt and then making a giant payment every year to pay that debt. And then we're kind of straddled with what we have each year. So to help with this, I've came up with the debt policy. It'll be presented later this year to kind of guide us along that same path we've been going on. And along with that, we also need to keep an eye on our statutory debt capacity as we grow. Right now, the statutory limit is 30% of our assessed valuation. We have about 14% of that in room available, so we're doing really well. So speaking of grants, just a recap of what we've got so far. These are the numbers for the 4th Street program or 4th Street project, the Meridian projects, the Seneca cost share that was recently announced, the fire packs, the police radios. For fiscal year 23 and beyond, I just put the answer as yes, because we will continue to get these grants. We'll continue applying, continuing to help reduce that overall debt limit moving forward. So right now, that's around 11.5 million. The Employee Benefit Fund, this is what pays for all of the benefits for our general fund employees. It does have its own levy. Right now, we do over budget this fund just because of the volatility of healthcare costs. As we saw last year, but pretty significant increase over 2020. But that was nationwide due to COVID. Everyone kind of just stopped going to the doctor if they didn't need to, just stayed home. In fiscal year 21, we saw a big bump in that when people getting back and doing voluntary procedures, et cetera, things like that. But here we're just scheduled to increase or decrease fund balance by 89,000. Special Streets and Highway, this fund is primarily funded by the gas taxes we receive from the state and the county. Our 2022 revised numbers are shown above, and then our 2023 estimated numbers are there as well. I'm going to drop those just a little bit during budget just because of inflation. So we don't receive these revenues based off the price of gas. We receive these revenues based off the demand. So the tax is a flat amount, right? So our revenues are only going to increase if more is used. It's not on the price of gas. So with right now, with inflation being so high, people aren't driving as often. So that may come down a little bit for next year. Overall for this fund, we'll have a 20,000 transfer to fleet management, the 23,000 for the slope mower, and I'd like to request an additional $200,000 transfer to CIP to help cover that overage we had with the 4th Street bidding, moving to concrete. This is kind of in the plan of things because last year we added over 200,000 to fund balance, so we're basically just moving that to the CIP to help pay for that overage on the 4th Street concrete. It still has our fund balance about 30%, even if we do make that transfer next year. And that's why the significant drop in the fund balance is scheduled at the top. Emergency Equipment Fund, dedicated $1 million, basically staying flat moving forward. Transfer 30,000 to fleet management to pay for the police vehicles through enterprise. And the 10,000 capital outlay remains for additional equipment. And then there's no extra requests for fiscal year 23. So the general fund requests. This includes the 19,000 for the City Hall HVAC units. I think we should have these scheduled to come out of equipment reserve. It takes that extra pressure off the general fund. There's also 1 full-time employee for the community development department, 2 full-time employees for fire, and then 1 full-time employee for parks and public buildings. I know there was 2 requested during the department budget meetings. We decided we want to go ahead and move forward with 1 for right now and go ahead and ask for that this year. So that'll give us more time to assess how that employee is going to interact and impact the overall services of that department. I'm going to ask right now, then later in 23, we may come back and ask again for a new one, but as of right now, it's just going to be that 1. So along with that, for the Parks and Public Buildings Department, we're also going to remove the cost for the seasonals. So that'll take over that, make that addition to budget neutral, and once again, hire that person this year. Also included were some smaller improvements to McLaughlin Park, the waterfall, and the disc golf course. Those can be scheduled to come out of the Special Parks and Rec Fund that has a fund balance of around 30,000, which we were going to use to purchase the truck a couple years back. But since we entered into that agreement with Enterprise, we no longer needed to use that. So we have significant funds just sitting there, which these improvements would be perfect for that. And other small increases such as travel.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
On the, so you said the improvements to McLaughlin Park is coming out of that Parks and Rec Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be enough in that fund to cover those expenses?
Yeah, I think those improvements were 15. I think things are around 15,000 total.
When you say disc golf course, I don't even know how much that stuff costs, but I see people using it. I just don't know if it's a wise use of funds. But if we got the dedicated fund for it, then I guess it's,
Yeah, so the Special Parks and Rec Fund is funded by the alcohol distributions that we get, and it
Okay.
can only be used for improving the parks,
okay.
essentially.
Any one of the parks in the city.
Any of the parks, yeah.
Okay.
So I think Director Owens brought up the disc golf course and the concrete pads and replacing the new disc golf buckets. So I think
We can just start with the waterfall first. All right.
Okay, so I rewatched the meeting from the department head requests, and I saw a comment in there about adding additional 10,000 to the economic development line item. And if we're going to do that, that number is included in these numbers, but we kind of need to figure out what that's going to be. So we need feedback on that. This is what it was budgeted for this year, and it involves the KBTS, Fall Fest, Mud Daubers, the marketing and the community commercial that we get from PBS for those. Or we can just include it in.
I think the general thought was, because we get requests to have something that we can go with without withdrawing from what we normally do, or if we decide, for some reason we want to give more to one of the ones that we give to. So it's just more of not having a restriction of this is where we have to hold type thing, to give us a little more flexibility. Councilmember Kerstetter.
I'm just going to piggyback off what you said. Just put it under miscellaneous. That way it's available for any requests.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to do any advertising for some reason of some kind, just that kind of thing. So it's just
Okay.
that's really what the gist of that was for.
All right.
Hold on those items we take out of Brian's budget.
Right. That's yeah, because that's where it always came. It always ended up coming out of his budget whenever we had things, and that's not fair. So
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, speak up and get your piece here, Ryan. Get your piece of the pie right now,
I'm on the
Ryan.
side right now. So yeah,
Get in here. Yeah, you better get in here
That
now.
was that one FTE up here.
All right, so we'll move on to general fund. So here's our revenue forecast for the next fiscal year. We're the 200,000 increase in sales taxes. I forgot to split that out. Half that's general fund, half of that is for the streets. It's not 200 straight to general. Apologize for that. Sales taxes have increased significantly, especially with the inflation rates. Everything is selling for more sales taxes generated. Those numbers are up. So from January to May last year compared to January to May this year, that's already $84,000 over that same period. So that's why we're increasing that revenue source next year. License and permits, it's already 25,000 over the same period as last year. So we're going to add 30,000 to that for fiscal year 23 with all the development, especially with Bill Andrews completing his commercial inspection licenses. So that's only going to increase that as well. So we don't have to pay MABCD 50% of the commercial licenses to come inspect the commercial properties. Charges for services and fines, this is relatively neutral for next year. We did have about $4,000 increase over the same period as last year for the community building. So that's starting to be rented out more as the COVID levels subside and everything like that. So our overall revenue for next year is 234,000 over, which includes the 101,000 of the sales tax and the 143,000 from the budgeted valuation increase. Same with our expenditures. This does include the $10,000 for that economic development line item. And these numbers here also include everything that's going to be presented in the next item. Just so we're aware with the compensation adjustments that'll be next. These numbers are maximum what we're going to spend. All 4 FTEs, all 100% of those, the compensation adjustments, everything else that's been requested, that's what these numbers represent with the general fund and throughout the rest of the entire budget. Just a quick update on the ARPA. We did receive our second allocation last week. And as you know, they implemented that new standard revenue loss rule of up to 10 million. So we can use our entire allocation on government services, et cetera. Makes things a lot easier to purchase, procure, move forward. So that does bring our total balance remaining up to almost 700,000. And it was interesting when I was at the GFOA conference, almost every city had public safety radios and public safety cameras that they've already spent their money on. Everybody. It was something that everyone needed, it seems like. And just a reminder, these need to be allocated by 24 and then spent by 26. Got some time to make those decisions. So for the next steps on the draft, just feedback on the first draft, especially specifically regarding the FTEs and the department requests, and then I'll incorporate that into our comprehensive discussion with the budget letter and everything outlining all the costs of everything.
This is where you get to speak up, guys and ladies. However, I would like to say that since 2007, since I've been on the governing body, since you've been here, this has been the easiest. I mean, I could just think of meetings upon meetings upon meetings in the past that we would have special meetings just to go through some of this stuff. And I don't know what to say. I'm just flabbergasted at how smooth and how easily you seem to be able to do this. Okay. And I'm not an accounting guy, but it has gotten so much easier to understand this over the years. And I thank you. So that's where I was going. Councilmember Kerstetter.
That's fine. So first question I had, which it's probably going to be, Mr. Eggleston's not here.
Nope.
Dang it. I was just out of curiosity for the $20,000 for water meters. How many does that buy? Does it buy enough to get us started on this subdivision?
Yes. So we currently have a stock of around 100.
Okay.
So we're just, and that was already, sorry, that 20,000 was budgeted this year as well. It's just a continuance of that.
Okay.
So
is it
we're
just stuff that needs to be replaced as needed, or is it?
Yeah, so they replaced all the very old meters in town. We initially ramped it up when we started replacing all of them for the water line project. And we just kept that going. So as they break, we replace them, and then adding all the new residential developments that'll help with that.
So on to the revenue neutral rate. Why they have to come up with some of this terminology, I don't know. Anyway, so based off of our evaluation to do a revenue neutral, slide 9, we would be at 51.14.
Yes.
Right? And the budget you presenting us includes the 54.848.
Yes.
So remind me of how do I want to say it? In order to be above the revenue neutral rate, what's the next step for that? Because after you answered this, I've got another question.
Right.
So
we have to notify Sedgwick County by July 20th
Okay.
if we're going to exceed the revenue neutral rate. So I would recommend just saying we're going to exceed it for right now, just so we go through the process every year.
Okay.
That gives us that extra time at the end of the season to have the extra hearing in September and then pass our budget in September.
Okay, so we say we want to exceed it, and then at a later date we decide that we don't want to do 54.8, we want to do 54 even or something like that. That's still in that window of allowances.
Yes.
Basically. Okay.
So I would suggest we notify Sedgwick County. We intend to exceed it by levying the 54.848. That gives us that extra time. And also, if we just went straight forward with the revenue neutral rate, if our valuation dropped, we're going to, because you're living dollars, you're not living mills anymore.
Right.
So if it drops, we're going to lose that much more when we do that. So by exceeding it, whatever it evens out to be, if it evens out to be more, we'll be able to get that little bit extra.
Okay. And to one more comment that I thought of, I appreciate that we're not increasing the mill, even though our evaluation increased. We're not increasing the mill to basically tax even more. We're just a neutral mill. every year our evaluations go up. It's inflation and all that stuff, but I just appreciate that we're not increasing it like some other cities.
Councilmember Evans.
I just kind of wanted to echo what everybody else was saying, and I wanted to thank you. Since I've started on the council, I remember the first one I went to, our first budget meeting I went to, and I was lost. The simplicity that you do behind this. I like numbers, but you're a genius. So I appreciate what you do to make it simple for me to review this and actually understand it, and then for you to speak it and be able to translate that to us. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I commend you for getting the $11 million of grants. That's just phenomenal. So.
Well, I appreciate all the compliments, but this would not be able to happen without all the department heads, all the staff, especially the council. We've been extremely aggressive these past 3 years when it comes to procuring equipment and getting stuff we need to do our job. So now at this point, we are moving from it's broken, we need to fix it now, state of mind, to a maintenance, recurring, replacing purchases schedule. So we're not all of a sudden struck with a $500,000 bill for new radios or new truck or whatever. So the whole theme of this budget is now moving from, the equipment, the stuff, to now our last giant piece of that puzzle, which is personnel. So let's get our personnel up there, transition our personnel piece to that maintenance mode moving forward. And that's kind of the overall theme of this. But no, this wouldn't be possible without everybody. This isn't just
Please
me.
pass that on to your staff then.
I just make it look pretty on the PowerPoint. That's all I do.
Yeah,
You've done a great job, so I just want to say thanks.
Yeah, and Councilmember Bass, you don't know how easy you've got it. So just to let you know that this is for your first budget. This is wonderful. So.
And I will say I love numbers. I love budgets. The other members of my household may not love budgets as much as I do. You're actually not alone at all.
I thought me and Matt were the only ones, but thank you.
So, all right. Anybody else? I guess we did go through the questions, even though you didn't have the slide up there, but.
I got just so what do you need from us then?
It was just you want me to
Yes.
go ahead and include all the FTEs, all the recommendations, everything, and just move forward from here? And we can always make adjustments later, or
Remind me the FTEs, the 2 firefighters.
the one for community development to assist with the inspections and some public works items, and then the one parks and buildings employee.
Okay. And we have enough work for all of them that we won't have to lay them off in? Perfect. Fire wasn't going to be a problem. I know that.
Yeah, fire, very important.
Yeah. All right.
All right. And yes, go ahead and notify the county by all means. Yeah. All right. We'll move on to item B, compensation adjustment proposal.
So to go hand in hand with the budget and all the numbers that were presented, it does include all the numbers presented in this memo as well for the compensation adjustments. So with inflation going on and the constant battling for talent, especially amongst municipalities with similar job types, et cetera, it was time that we reviewed our current salary schedules and compare those to the market and see where we fell. So we kind of did it in-house this year. We've spoke with a couple of consultants and speaking to a couple of other cities who spoke with the consultants. They said, the market's kind of crazy right now. It's kind of just to do kind of an internal thing and then look at it next year once everything kind of settles down. So that's what we did. We utilized the League of Kansas Municipalities salary survey. They send it out to every city in the state. Whoever responds gets a free copy of it. So that's what we were using. And I compared all those job titles to all of ours that were very similar. In smaller municipalities where we wear a lot of hats, it's kind of hard to compare apples to apples all the time. But in general, the police, fire, admin assistants, parks positions, they were all something that we could compare against. So after looking through that, it was noted that most of our salary ranges were low, right around that 4.5% to 5% mark, just on the ranges themselves. And then what we were paying people, especially the more tenured people, was lower than it should have been. So that's why we're presenting this tonight. One item that really stuck out was the area of public safety and especially police. Over the past couple of years, this job title, this job itself, these pay ranges have dramatically increased. It's getting harder and harder to find applicants and even harder to retain the loyal people that you have. So as some small comparisons here, Bel Air, Mays, Sedgwick County, every surrounding entity around us is paying more. That's just the way it is. Especially Wichita and Bel Air, they were the two highest around us. And it changes anywhere from 89 cents to over $4 more an hour than what we're currently paying. And this has all happened in the past 2 years, and it's just the answer, the market itself. It's just getting harder to find and recruit new police officers. We made a big step in this direction when we implemented KPNF, which was huge. So that makes our talent pool a little bit bigger that we can pull from. But the last part of that is now wage. And this is just the most significant adjustments, but every other position around, it was at 4 to 5% lower. So when we're looking at pay, we decided to do an internal kind of survey amongst our employees and kind of rank this among their priorities and where they rank their current pay status. Well, we split up into 3 categories based on years of service, and all of those rankings that were returned were in that 2.4 to 2.7 range, which is about half, about 50% of the scale is on a 1 to 5 scale, with 5 being, pay is great, priority needs to be, 1 being it really needs to be worked on. So all those came back around that range, and that was the lowest rated factor amongst everything when you include benefits, morale, culture, teamwork, and leadership. All those other categories were doing great in that 3.8 to 4.2 range. Awesome results there. So that just shows this needs to be our primary focus this year. And with everything else going on, it's just better to get this on the schedule now. So after looking through everything, we want to do it on a years of service basis. So how this breaks down is, as presented in the memo, 0 to 0.99 years of service, you'll end up with a 1% adjustment. 1 to 2, 3.5%, 2 to 3, 6%, 3+ years of service, 8.5%. So what this does is it helps us address compression, right? So we've done a great job over the past 3 years of bringing people in where they need to be at market rate or even slightly above to keep us competitive with hiring for empty positions. I mean, right now we only have 1 or 2 open positions out of 50. We've done a great job there. The part that affects the most is your tenured people. So now we're bringing people in $2 or $3 more an hour than our tenured people started at. So it's closing that gap between our new hire pay and our tenured people pay. And that's called compression. It compresses those pay ranges. So when we apply the years of service to it and the percentages presented, it really widens that gap, that compression gap, as seen in the chart here. So right now we're about $1.70 apart. After the compensation adjustments, we'll be in that $3.50 range. So what's that do? It tells our tenure people, we care that you're being loyal. We want you to stay here. We don't want to lose you. Your institutional knowledge alone, you can't put a price on. You can't. When you have that one officer, that one firefighter who knows specifically how to deal with this one individual, I mean, you just can't lose that. So by applying that years of service standard to it, it really negates that fact of compression and keeps everybody fair and equitable across the board. So along with this, we're also proposing a change to our annual increases, moving from 3% to 4%, because right now it's just a 3% increase based upon merit. Moving forward, it'll be broken out into a 1.5% or whatever COLA number we want to use, whatever average of so many years, we can decide that COLA number, and the rest will be merit. And then whatever we decide on that COLA number will also be applied to the salary range itself. So that way you're growing along with your range. And every 3 years when we look at salaries, we don't got to go, oh, wow, everybody's now 5 to 6% below the market. Like, we're going to grow with the market and remain competitive each year. So 3 years from now, we might have to make minor adjustments rather than a giant adjustment to get everybody back up to pace. So the financial implications are laid out here. We are requesting this to start this year in the first full pay period of July, using July 1st as the cutoff date for the years of service. The impacts for the operating funds that have employees in them are listed here for this year and all of next year, and the impacts on the benefits as well. That's kind of what we're asking for. I'm sure there's some questions. I'd be glad to answer them.
Before I let council ask, I do want to put something out there that this is one of those that always gets discussed. However, what doesn't get discussed when we think about doing something of this is how much does it cost us to constantly retrain people? Okay. And this is the goal here, is if we can continue to keep people and not retain people, this will eventually, and may a lot quicker than might be going through my head right now, actually save us money because we're not spending all that. And some of these positions that we have in the city is not something that you take, a week or 8 hours and go out and train somebody. It takes months. I mean, just looking at one officer that's fresh out. Yeah, solid year. The fact that we've got Bill doing what he's doing, that's obviously is taking him some time, but you saw earlier the cost benefits of that. So yes, it's definitely something that has to be weighed when we do something like this is what are we saving with training? What and keeping somebody and allowing them to go even farther in training. It's one of the other things, incentives to have people. How many times have we heard from Rodney about how many of his guys that have gone and, gotten higher levels of certifications based on water or sewer or whatever they happen to be working on. And I'm not going to leave the Poor Parks Department out because since 2007, they have always been the one that's gotten the raw deal. Okay. And lately it's been shared between community development and parks. So, maybe you guys shouldn't sit at the same table and that might break. No. So I'm going to head and let council speak, but I just wanted to throw that out there that there's more than just, this is what we're doing to retain people. So, Councilmember Evans.
I had two questions. First one comes to my mind is we're talking about making sure that we're getting it up with everybody else. Is it enough? I guess is my question.
After comparing this, it gets our starting wages pretty right in the middle, if not slightly above all the ones mentioned in that first page there, especially on the public safety side.
The second question I was going to ask was in regards to the years where you do the 0 to 1, 1 to 2, et cetera. Is it possible to maybe break it out further? So that way when someone's been there for 10 years?
Or our last salary study was done in 2019. So we're really on that 3-year point. So in 2019, we had the salary study done. Everything was readjusted to market. So we've only gone 3 years from that point. So it's kind of compensating for that 3 years of not.
This is something we can look to in the future then.
Right. So in the future, we shouldn't have to make these adjustments. But these new ways we're going to handle the salary ranges along with the annual increases.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Stam.
I've been a government employee for 33, 34 years. So I've seen trends, and I remember when I got hired, there was 100-some people applied for my job. Everybody wanted a government job. The last 3-4 years, I know in Derby, they've got this note for 2 years. People don't want to work. They want the cushy job. They don't want to go out and mow, get hot and sweaty. So I like this. The question I have is, will it affect part-time employees too, like part-time firefighters and stuff? Will they get a pay increase too, or is this just full-time staff?
This right here is just for full-time staff. For next year, we're scheduling to eliminate all the seasonal positions for the new Parks FTE. And then like the part-time firefighters, we have made some adjustments there, especially when they cover shifts, bumping them up from, the 11 or 12 it was up to 18 and 19 an hour when they cover shifts. So we've made some adjustments there as well.
I'd like to see them kind of kept even too, because they're as valuable as full-time people.
Very much so.
Councilmember Kersteiner.
And since you did that survey 3 years ago, did we have any years that there was no merit increase or no raise? No. Okay. So looking at this, to get us in more in line with the trend, not the trend. My brain went to Gaussian bell curve. But to get us in the line with what everybody else
Rest of
is,
the world.
the rest of the
Rest of the
rest of the
county.
area. So market rate. Hey, thank you. Because my mind went science and not economics. So to get us into the market rate, these adjustments, can you go to your page, page 29? So this is what I'm looking at. So that 8.5% is kind of hard to swallow. I know you included it in the budget for 23, but it's still kind of hard to swallow for overall. But I don't disagree. We need to offer rate merit increases. I don't even know what else I want to say. But it's just that 8.5% is hard to swallow. That whole right column is almost hard to swallow. But
I know it is a really, really large number. But when you think about it this way, so in 19, when all the salary scales were readjusted, we only offer a 3% annual increase per year. So for a 3-year period, that's 9%. Average increases have been at 1.5% COLA range. If we apply that 1.5% COLA as part of that 3%, like that 3% is made of 1.5% COLA, 1.5% merit, we've given 4.5% merit over a 3-year period. So since we weren't adjusting the ranges along with the pay. So really, when you're only doing that 3% merit and then you adjust those ranges 5% after another 3-year period, you're dropping your employees back down an additional 5%, back down below the range, and then you're having to adjust again. So it's like a back and forth game every 3-year period.
so follow-up question. How much of this is July 1st versus how much is January 1st? I remember reading somewhere in there that,
So the impact for the rest of this year would be these numbers here.
well, I mean, so off those columns, the merit, is it the merit adjustment or the COLA adjustment that is going to be July 1st?
It'd be all of it, the 8.5% as of July 1st.
Of this year? So then what happens, what did I read on January 1st?
So our annual increases, which are normally 3%, move to 4% on January 1st.
See, personally, I think that should be evaluated annually, not, but I guess we have to budget ahead of time for that. Whether the COLA. So I guess the better question is, you have a allotted 4%. If your employee doesn't qualify for the 4%, they don't get the 4%.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes. And so part of it's COLA and merit versus right now what we're doing is just 3% is kind of what we give the direction to the department directors to have. Now, of course, that 3%, if somebody gets in their department, let's say 4% and one person gets 2%, as long as the average is 3%, that's fine.
So they have a
and
dollar
so we're
amount.
constantly trying since 2019 to get everybody up to that 90% of the median rate of their job title and ranges. Now, you got to remember, this 8.5 is tough and it's a large dollar amount. However, this is a culmination of 3 years of working on our budget, of being really stressing upon every single department head, every single employee to do more due diligence, to find other ways to save money, and making sure that they're really restrictive in their expenditures. I mean, they have done a phenomenal job, which now has allowed Barry Smith and Matt Kane to really be able to look at the budget and say, hey, we can afford to do this kind of large jump in 3 years. And so this is started back in 2019 when Barry first started, when kind of the new admin staff had came on board with our city treasurer and our assistant city administrator, myself. So this is all the hard work of 3 years of budgeting and looking at our expenditures. If you look at our overall budget, we were in great financial shape. The one thing that we have been lacking in 3 years has been personnel and employees. So now is the time to address the situation now at mid-year, and then again address it with the 4% or up to potentially 4% on average in January of 23. And so all this has started in 2019, and that's why if you look at the bottom line on how much we've carried over, on where we're looking financially on trying to get more grants, and really looking at our expenditures on a line item by line item basis, that's what's come to now saying, hey, 8.5%. Are we the most? No, not in the state of Kansas that are doing mid-year reviews. I mean, there are some that are 20%. Yes, I like your little shake there. Yes, I said 20%. And yeah, that's what we did. And so 8.5 is just to get us where we need to be, but that doesn't fix the problem. And so that's why the 4%, and that's where you saw it in FY23 for January is 4%. And those reviews happen in the fall of the year previous. So November, December, and then of course I review every single one of them. I may not sit in on all of them. I did that in 19, and that was a long few months. But though I still review every single performance evaluation, seeing where they fall on the criteria for their increase, depending upon the percentage. So just so you know, there is oversight on that as well.
I'm not doubting the oversight. It's just a hard number to swallow. So, okay, what do I say to Joe Schmo on the street that I didn't get an 8.5% raise?
We have openings. And also ask them where did they start? What was their starting wage? Now remember, we have some employees that started out at $15 an hour, since we've been here, 2019. So, I mean, I know it's different. I mean, back when I started in 2009, it was 6.25 is what I started at per hour. 6.25. Can you imagine that? So, I mean, we
Don't go there.
we got to play catch up. I know that's a lot to some. I understand, but 8.5 does get our that compression issue that Mr. Smith talked about is really the problem, and so it rewards our employees that have been here for 3+ years, but also kind of gets them back to where we could have probably had them before.
So is this plan going to mitigate 3 years from now, and it's not going to be 8.5%?
Yes.
Okay.
So with that new 4% broken out into the COLA and the merit, the COLA is applied to the salary range itself and the employee pay, and the merits apply to the employee pay. So the employee is growing with their range every year. And we're not having these big gaps every 3 years to make up on.
Okay.
So it's like the giant equipment purchase. Now we're moving to maintenance. From moving forward, it's just maintaining that.
But the 4% is still a hard sell when the whole market, private, and I'm thinking private and government is 3% has been the norm for so long. That's just what everybody's used to. But anyway, I'll.
One, two, sorry, just I wasn't going to talk much this meeting.
Yeah, right.
That was my plan. You also, I've been a part of a lot of union negotiations. Some of them just do it, based upon the CPI index. And so, there's some years that, that's a little higher than 3, 7, I think I see. So this is kind of our own variation of doing that without having, union contract. Now, hopefully June, sorry. We were hoping to have a new personnel, handbook in front of you as well. And that's going to have incentives in it for, to encourage training and encourage, additional certificates with additional, dollar amount as far as, 50 cents, is a quarter, is a 10 cents an hour raise. I don't know what that is, but to help incentivize our employees to also go and get, more training and education as well. So this is, yes, 4%, but you have to look at, it's not all just guaranteed 4%. I mean, there's a little cost of living in there, 1.5%, somewhat guaranteed, but it's the merit. And the merit is what I have always tried to focus on as a city administrator, is that I want to encourage people that are working hard by incentivizing them a little bit more than just sitting there and holding the ladder. I want them also up on that ladder.
Councilmember Colbert.
Well, you answered what I was going to ask you, one of the questions, but I'm just curious, and this may be a little off the subject. But when you're considering their wages for all employees, let's say that they want to go back to class or something, is there any incentive in there for that?
Yeah, we do have a tuition reimbursement program that if they want to go back to school.
What
and
percent?
a tuition reimbursement program, it's at $1,500.
Okay.
That'll reimburse their.
Say the chief comes up to us and says, hey, I need a new training officer. Would that be filled in with that too?
Well, you'd have to approve a new position. And we could hire that person if
Not
the
giving you
council so
any
chooses.
ideas, Chief.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I wanted to find out. Thanks.
Councilmember Evans.
I just wanted to say that I think this, and you kind of said it, Brent, but this is a way to reward all of our employees to get them up to that threshold. So I think it's a great idea.
Councilmember Stam.
I want to tag on to something Councilman Kerstetter said, and it kind of makes me mad because a lot of people do it. They compare us to the public sector making money. Public sector gets Christmas bonuses, incentive bonuses. Government employees don't get nothing. They just get the salary. So that's big discrepancy. That's all.
And that's clearly speaking from somebody that's done it for how many years?
34 years.
Yep. So
I hear all my neighbors and friends, they do something, they get, oh, I got $10,000 bonus. I get a turkey at Christmas. I mean.
Councilmember Wilson.
It's like 20.
How can I follow up with a turkey?
How do you?
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking the same thing. I was like, how can you got nothing there?
Give me a ham. I'll take the ham. I'll take the ham. So Barry, the salary thing has been done for the last 3 years, kind of in the past. Did you actually put any numbers together for 2024 as to what impact this would be to budget on 2024?
Just add 4% to that total.
Just another 4%?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, I'm like Councilman Kirkstetter. The thing is going to be is explaining this to an individual as to what they're truly seeing number wise. And so we talked about the impact of losing someone or retraining someone. And so you're looking at an impact of almost 100,000 for the rest of this year, another 230,000 next year, then another 4% on top of that. So now I'm looking at, okay, if I'm having to replace a firefighter, does replacing one individual cost me 230,000 in the year? No, it does not. There's some expense, yes, but not $230,000 worth.
Right.
Now, if you lose 3 or 4, then we're talking about a huge impact to the dollar amount to retrain someone. That's what I'm trying to put together there. Okay. Well, we're in some anomalies here. I'm going to give a pass to 21 and 22 and even 20 probably, just because this lousy employee market is just hard. It's really hard.
Right.
So
I
I'm seeing it too, Chief. I've lost all my staff at my location, so that's 9. So, yeah.
I think it's more on retaining the employees we have. So
Correct.
City of Derby just posted a position for a admin assistant for the senior coordinator at $19.36 an hour. That's more than probably 20 of our employees that do way more work than, and I'm not saying admin assistants don't do a lot of work, but I'm saying that impacts our employees and our ability to retain. And when we have people showing up at 2 a.m. to fix a water line break and stay working until what time today? 4 today to make sure that's not broken anymore, to maintain water service to our residents. I mean, I can't put a price tag on that.
And two, if I can add in, sorry, I did forget to mention a few things. Also, since 2019, if you look at our overall total staff in some departments, I don't think, because we haven't, brought it to you, of course, but we've been doing a lot more with less. There's been a few positions that have exited that you haven't even realized that we did not backfill. And that added to the total pool of money that we have for our personnel. And so we're running leaner as well. We're asking more of our employees to do multitasking. Barry alone, I think, does 7 different hats now, and actually covered a full position between Barry, myself, and Matt Kane that is no longer here. Same thing on the water and sewer side. Those were really siloed. We've come together more, and there's actually one less full-time person in that department that you may not realize. And the same thing goes across the board. And so we do those things. So then when this type of item comes up on the agenda, you really don't have to worry about it. The money's there. It's budgeted. It's budgeted in the forecast numbers for the next, multiple years to come with the 4% increase. And as you see, we will continue to increase our valuation. With all the developments going on, those numbers will only increase. And so we feel confident and comfortable. If we didn't, we wouldn't present these numbers to you all to approve. So do want to make sure we mention that as well.
Councilmember Bass.
How many years have we been on the bottom end of our pay scale compared to other communities around here? How far back would we look?
Just back to the salary study done in 2019. That's when everything kind of reset itself.
Multiple years that we know of, we've been at the bottom end.
Right. And I mean, sorry, go ahead.
And then how many of our employees are under $25 an hour?
I have to look. It's
Total number or percentage?
Either. Majority, that's what I would say, right?
the majority.
So I think that 8% is a high number, but when you're looking at 8% of $22, it's a little easier number to comprehend. So I think if someone asked me off the street, that's what I would just kind of explain that dollar amount on a majority of our staff. And I think it's going to I think it would have a tangible impact on turnover rate. So I think that's super valuable. That's all I have.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
Councilmember Bass, that was a great question. Excluding directors, do you have any idea what the average wage is?
I can pull it up.
If you don't have it right now, that's fine.
I can talk about that for a little bit.
It's okay.
I mean,
Thank you.
so our
Talk more at the end, I'm sure.
our police department has the most people. In
Oh yeah, that's right.
in the
You had
city. They have roughly 20 employees. Their average pay for people under 3 years was $19.40, almost $20 here. Over 5 years of service, the average was 21, pretty close to 22. So 20 people there, excluding even Captain Boat. That's the majority of our people. Same with
Okay.
fire. They're going to average $18,
And
18,
with-
19.
With that comparison, we're already on average probably $3 below everybody else.
Most positions. But with the new people we brought in over the past couple of years, like our new admin assistants and those, and our new streets guys and the new water and sewer guys we brought in, we bumped them up in their starting wage. Like they're where they need to be. That's why they're only getting that lower percent adjustment. It's our tenured people that we want to keep.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? This actually requires a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve compensation adjustments for up to 8.5%.
Would you take over?
Keep going. Keep going.
Starting on the first full pay period in July of 2022 and increasing annual pay adjustments from 3% to 4% as stated in the attached memo.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Much.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hands. Motion carries. Moving on to staff reports. I'm going to just not call and see if everybody gets up in the right order. Just going to move on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, on behalf of my staff and my department, thank you so much for the compensation increase. That's greatly appreciated. Just what Mr. Clark is handing out to you this evening is a very exciting announcement. This will be distributed in the utility bill next week. Main Street Valley Center has taken on a new project for 2022 in the creation of a new farmers market. These market events will be held on the first and third Thursdays of the month, starting on July 7th and running through October 20th. They will be held at Dr. Troilo's vacant lot there on Main Street across from Tequila's. And more information will be coming out on our website, mainstreetvalleycenter.com. Again, the market will run from 4 to 8 p.m. on the first and third Thursdays. And anyone that is interested, we have created a vendor registration form, a vendor handbook. So we have done a lot of research in making sure that this is going to be a professionally run farmers market, that no one is confused as to what the hours are, what the requirements are, making sure that it will be the responsibility of each of the vendors to make sure that they have the appropriate licensing through the State Department of Agriculture, the Department of Revenue, any type of federal requirements, that will be on the vendors themselves. So when they sign their form, they are waiving any liability of our organization of Main Street Valley Center, the City of Valley Center, etc. All of the documentation will be available again through Main Street's website. We'll also be advertising through social media, Main Street social media, as well as the city's Facebook and social media pages. And so very excited to get this off the ground. If anyone has any questions, again, on the flyer, you'll see that Marcia Hubert, she is our lead board member that will be working on the farmers market this year. And we're just very excited to bring this to the community, bring this to our downtown. So we're looking forward to our first event on July 7th. Stand for any questions?
Councilmember Gregory.
Yes.
I just want to point out that this is another one of Barry Smith's hats.
Oh,
He
yes,
designed the logo.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
And the flyer. He does good work.
Councilmember Wilson.
So how did we fall on doing Thursdays? I'm just fascinated by that. I think
Yeah,
that's
so
going to set us apart from the Saturdays.
Right, exactly. So as you can imagine, Saturdays are pretty saturated in Sedgwick County, as well as some other dates. So the board, when looking at when we wanted to have this, obviously looking at days that are more open. So Thursday was selected as a good day that would work for the board liked it, and hopefully vendors, it'll work for them as well in helping alleviate that Saturday schedule.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Owens.
I too would like to echo what Ryan said regarding the pay increases for the staff. I speak on behalf of my staff. I've much appreciated for the ones that are still with us. I have lost 3 over the last 12-month period, so it is very much appreciated. A couple other things to make you aware of in the one of the projects that we've got going on right now that is over at the dog park right now, actually. We have that area closed for some restoration. It actually started Monday. Closure was Monday, and it'll be for about 3 weeks long. It is just the large dog park side, so the small dog park side is still open for people to use if they so choose to on that side. But we needed to do some aeration, fertilization, spend a little time doing some dirt work in there and really kind of get that area rejuvenated because it had gotten compacted and do a few other little projects that we've got going on over there and try to get that snuff. So if it opens sooner than July 11th, we will post that and have that notified to folks. And butterfly. I just wanted to bring up the fact that the butterfly garden has had quite a bit of work done on that, all on the heels of pretty much volunteers from the Friends of the Library and folks affiliated with that. And if you haven't gone by in a while, there have been quite a bit of adjustments and things planted in there. There's a new rock bubbler water garden thing in there. There's a lot of the plants have started to take hold, and we're working right now. They are kind of working right now with a potential for an Eagle Scout project over there. We met with him, this young man, last week, so they're looking at doing a couple of other things over there. One being a footbridge across the little drainage area, and then to way back when the community center and library was built, there was a resident here that has donated a large butterfly garden bench. It's in the shape of a butterfly, and that Eagle Scout's going to be working on setting that bench in place, and we're going to work with him on the concrete portion of that, and that'll be some of the other amenities that are going to be added to the butterfly garden out there. So if you haven't been by in a while, check it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Newman.
Just to echo both Neil and community development there, Ryan. On behalf of my employees, I also want to thank you. I'm sure they appreciate it. They see these agendas ahead of time. They knew this topic was on the agenda tonight, and I've heard a lot of comments, a lot of questions. What do you think is going to happen? And I know they appreciate it. We have a lot of, in my department, I'm a little unique. We are the biggest department, biggest building. I've got quite a few people that have been there a while, and they love this city. They love working here, and a lot of them have been loyal and stayed here. And so I know this means a lot to them that you did this tonight. I can tell you at a recent conference, one of my sergeants who's been here over 10 years, he had 3 different offers trying to lure him away from us, and he turned them all down. So it means a lot, and appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shear. Mr. Arbuckle. Mr. Smith, you had enough. You had the whole meeting. Once I'm yelling at you instead of him about that, so.
Yeah. Just one more. Thank you so much for that, that approval. It really means a lot. Very passionate about this topic. And just thank you very much.
Mr. You've got 30 seconds, clerk.
Echo everybody else, of course, and I really want to thank you. Thank you all for your trust in the leadership and all of our department heads. This is really important. This affects everybody's daily life. This is their wage. This is what they live on. And so, just to show that we are serious about them, we care about every single one of our employees. We do. Every single person matters. That works for Valley Center, and every single resident does too. So thank you, truly thank you for all of that. One last thing, because farmers market's coming, but I'm going to try to show on the camera. Christy Rither, her birthday is Monday, June 27th. So happy birthday, Christy!
Happy birthday! Yay! What's a question for you from Councilmember Kerstetter?
You said 30 seconds.
I know. I apparently the
Kerstetter.
governing body didn't hear me.
Well, it might actually be for Mr. Shear.
Oh.
The Ford Street project, is that actually going to start on July 8th?
We had a pre-con meeting this morning, and we did emphasize the importance of traffic control and notification of the public. So they are going to plan on having message boards set up 2 weeks ahead of time. So that would
Okay.
be 2 weeks from this Friday. So it's 2 weeks starting from this Friday. So this week they should have some boards up.
Okay. And that's going to be,
Closure. It's a Friday. I don't know why they chose that date. That might just be mobilizing some things.
okay. It's going to be full closure with only local traffic. Is that correct on Ford?
In sections.
In sections, okay.
I think, I think the first phase, and then maybe a month or 6 weeks later, then they would potentially close the rest and have local access only.
Okay.
So the first phase, and we'll have more information. We'll send out push notifications. I mean, we just didn't want to get ahead of it too quick, because otherwise people.
Well, no, but communication is very key because I don't want to get phone calls about it.
And we have door hangers that will go to all the residents along that stretch. And then also we've been, thanks to Katie over in Public Works, she's been compiling all the emails for all the folks that we've had contact with right of way or utility acquisitions. And so they're going to be invited and also receive the weekly, if not bi-weekly meetings and all the reports. So then they know when that's happening. So instead of yelling at you, I told them we're going to yell at the contractor directly through Gage.
Speaking of contractors.
So, and also 81 Speedway was notified multiple times because we are starting now at the roundabout and moving west where that changed because of the property acquisition issue. And so we are starting at the roundabout on Broadway and Ford and moving west till kind of the crest of the last hill, kind of by, if anybody knows, the Earl Dill property and Ducey property, kind of that area there. And then so that section will be closed first. And then the second one will then include Seneca. So, from July 8th for the next, 6 to 8 weeks, you'll still be able to use Seneca. Everyone's really gotten used to, I think, the detour route down Seneca and Ford. That's been kind of an on and off for 2 years. So, yes, questions are.
Well, speaking of contractors, the guys doing the electrical work, are they almost done? Along
The ones,
5th Street?
they don't tell us anything.
I'm
there's
getting
your
tired
answer.
of the one lane closure with not being able to see over hill.
Maybe Chief Newman has a question, but they still have to remove, once they're still pulling the line, and I know that they're just shoving it through the underground along Trails End and the new development and all the way past Fiddler's Creek. I know that they're still, shoving line.
This is an
today.
Evergy project.
Yes, this
They
is an
need
Evergy
to communicate
project.
better with us, but that wouldn't happen if we had our own.
And then, of
Stuff.
course, when they're done, they have to go back and remove the poles.
Yeah, of course.
And so if anybody wants any poles, actually, they'll drop them off at your house. So if you're looking for a good landscaping project or just want to, kill yourself, you can sure try to lift one of those poles at your house.
We did receive word late this afternoon that we can expect the switch over in the next week or two.
Okay. Switch over.
Switch over.
That's not the project.
That's power out.
That's just the power being out and the switch of the power. And then they got to come back and do the poles. And yes, we have been, and then the AT&T issue. Yes. When they were boring that line up in Fiddlers, it just bored right through the main AT&T line. So we do apologize for those folks that couldn't get a call or text or have any internet or any service or any cell.
Yeah.
So
And there's this thing
Anything else?
called ground location, 811. Do they not know that they require everybody else to do it, that they should be doing it?
Well, I think they knew where it was. Anyways,
Yeah,
did I answer your question?
They just cut
Thank
it.
you.
Sit down before I say something else.
Thank you. Sit down.
Moving along, governing body reports. I have nothing. Councilmember Stam.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Evans.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Bass.
Nothing for me.
Councilmember Gregory.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Kerstetter.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Wilson.
I just want to thank my fellow council people along with Mr. Clark there of going out to KPTS along with Jim that's in the audience. We had a fabulous time. I'm surprised they want us back. We were a pretty rowdy group, a little more than I think they had their hands ready for, but we had a great time. And I really think that we really kind of showed what Valley Center is all about. And so really appreciate everybody going and having a good time with it. And we raised some good money, so can't complain.
Councilmember Colbert.
Yeah, I've got two things. One, Chief, I got a question for you. I've been asked why the fire trucks are up in the high school parking lot training.
They've done that from time to time. They spread out throughout town. You'll see them. They don't go into the developments as they fill up with houses, but new developments, as you see them come in before the houses are built, you'll see them in there as well.
But they're using the water system there. Or what are they doing?
They use the
Because they-
hydrants, water on the truck, and then the hydrants. I mean, they're not hooking into the school system.
Well, the gentleman was concerned because somebody left a lug or something in the parking lot. He was supposed to turn it in. I don't know if he did.
Left a what in the parking lot?
It's a round lug. Looked like it went to a wheel.
I'm not sure. No one's turned anything into my knowledge. I'm not
Okay,
sure what you're
good.
talking about.
Okay, thanks. The other one is for the Parks Department. Thank you for helping us with the sign. We have had quite a few comments on it, and people are pleased with it. They did bring up one question, though, the rusting on there. How can we prevent that on the lug bolts?
Oh, on the bolts themselves? Maybe that's something we'll have to take a look at, but maybe a clear urethane or something like that, I would think would be appropriate.
Okay,
Mhm.
appreciate it. But thanks for the help.
Absolutely.
You guys doing with the park,
Absolutely.
cleaning up the park.
It was a fun project. Thank you.
On that there.
Nice to work with you all.
Thank you. There's no other business. Make a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
Second.
A motion is second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Two-item agenda. It's 9 o'clock.